Hi, you guys. This is my review about why you should not tell a restaurant you have experience in management. Don't put it down on your job application. Listen, I'm not telling you to lie, but usually, if you made it to management, you probably had to be crew member, team lead, and then from there, you get to shift management. Okay. The next one after that is assistant management. And then after that, you are general manager, which is like pretty much the top in a restaurant. So, there's a lot of managers in a restaurant, but the top dog is always the general manager. Anyways, let me tell you, do not put the UR management because of two reasons. If you are applying for a lower position just to get a part time position, if you are management, let me tell you, you will not be part time. Managers are the only ones who are not part time. And everybody else is part time. But they usually will want you to have the availability of full time, but will never give you full time. Remember that. Okay. Second, second reason is that if they know you have management, you are not considered an asset. You are considered a threat to them, to their survival as top dog in the restaurant. Let me tell you. Okay. I worked at a place for 3 years. I was shift manager and all of that. Okay. And I was always available, always available. And for whatever reason, this girl, she would also not even approve my vacation. I couldn't even take a vacation because she wouldn't approve it. And the only way for you to get your vacation was for them to approve it. And that was actually one of the reasons that I just left. I was like, I'm done with this. Like, I need a vacation. It's not okay for you to keep getting pregnant and going on leave and think that, you're on your fifth kid, and for you to think that it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay for me not to see my family. It's not okay for me to be feeling like I'm dying and can't even get to the doctor because I did not even have time. I would be scheduled midday, any job midday. I'm like, please get the hell out of here. I Oh my god, did you guys hear it? You guys, I make the video about this ring thing I keep hearing. I don't know if you guys heard it. Anyways, um, so I was like, get out of here with your midday, right? Um, every time they say midday, I'm like, oh great, I'm not gonna have time to do anything. If I need to go to a doctor's appointment, anything like that. But I haven't been able to get a doctor's appointment in like 3 years at this point because they keep canceling my appointments and they keep moving my appointments and I never get to a doctor for that reason. I'm actually trying to change insurances right now and get away from all of that. The only time that I got to a doctor was when I had covered California. That's the only time that I got to a doctor, and only because I had COVID. They actually saw me. But that's how it is out here. If you are poor. Anyway, so let's get to the point here. Um, I remember the general manager going through applications, and I would be right there in her office. And she would choose, I'm not kidding you, like the most unqualified people because she was so insecure and had an inferiority complex, okay? And she was also short on top of everything. You know that they say people who are short, they've got that Napoleon complex. And there was also another guy there that worked there that had the same freaking complex, okay? They see other people as better qualified than them. If they're tall, they see them as better qualified than them. It like they have a complex, okay? And she had the complex. And I remember she would hire like the worst people. I kid you not, the worst people. And then she was also where she would hire all of her boyfriend's friends. And then her boyfriend was on payroll. Okay, so there was also like all this stuff, and no matter how much you tried to complain, you couldn't get her in trouble because she was friends with like she had worked with all the people that had climbed the ladder to become HR, to become um, all these positions within the company. So she was in there like a tick, that she was never gonna get out of there, and she's still there. Okay, and basically what happened was like she hired the worst people. I kid you not, the worst people. They were all on drugs. They would all smoke on the restaurant. I was like, how am I supposed to deal with these people? Like I would write them up and she would just throw away the write-ups. And it was so irritating. And all of them were her boyfriend's friends. And then they were the company that I worked for at the time, and I'm not gonna say the name of the company for clear reasons. So don't be asking me in the comments, what was the name of the company that you worked for? Why would I tell you, man? For clear reasons, I'm not gonna tell you. Come on now, liability, darling. Anyways, um, they they would do this thing where if you signed that that person referred you when you were being hired, that person, if you stayed there for 6 months, that person would get $600. So your first 2 months they would get $200. Your first 4 months they would get $400, and then after 6 months they were getting paid out like basically $200 every extra for you being there. So she was running a whole scam, hiring these people that were like that, um, basically to work there, and then after the 6 month mark they would quit. And so it was like working in hell because you had to retrain everybody, and she didn't train anybody. I was the person training everybody. Okay, so I would train everybody, and then I I was getting thrown all the responsibility basically, and it was so irritating. But this is basically why you don't go in there and you tell them you have management, because then they throw all the responsibility on you. The higher up, the one who's a salaried employee, all right, bye. The one who's a salaried employee is not going to want to work because they get paid no matter what. They're going to get paid no matter what. Whether they come in or not, they are paid. Okay, that's how salary works. They pay you whether you come in there or not, whether you have a sick day or not, you're still paid. It's a guaranteed pay no matter what, right? So she would not come in, hardly. That was the other problem. And she hired, like I said, the worst people that would come in there on on severe drugs. I'm talking like hard drugs. Like they were they were falling asleep at the job because they were on such hard drugs, okay? And um it was bad. It was bad. And they always for whatever reason thought I was attractive, even though I don't think I'm that attractive. Um, they always seemed to think that I was attractive and would make all these passes at me. And then it got to a point where they were just like super unprofessional. I mean, they were always really super unprofessional, but it got to a point where no matter what, you could not get these people in trouble because she needed them to make that 6 month mark so that they would pay her boyfriend out. And so she was basically a general manager, and general manager couldn't do that one promotion where someone you knew could come and work there 6 months and then you'd get paid that thing. And so they were, let me tell you, there was so much going on at this restaurant. I am still shocked that nothing happened to them. I'm like, there is no justice, is there? Because I never see it happen to anybody who does bad. I'm not kidding. I don't see justice happen to people who do bad things. I'm like should I just become a bad person, like a villain out here? And because it looks like it's more fun, it looks like it's better, it looks like it actually pays your bills or something. But I'm just saying, don't tell them. Don't go in there and tell them that you are management. In fact, put down on your application maybe that you were just crew member for 3 years or whatever. Because if they see that you have management, they will literally skip your application. They will be like, no, I don't want competition. They will literally be like that. I'm not kidding. It's just what it is. And it's sad and crazy. And then one time, oh, so yeah, let me tell you, she would not staff. She would not staff the shifts unless it was her shift. Everybody else's shift was just like you and one other person, or you and two people, but her shift was actually staffed like uh restaurant industry guidelines and everything. So her shift would be staffed with 14, 15 people, and then she would make you stay extra because according to her you needed to prep for her shift. No, you did not need to prep for the other person's shifts. It's not true. So okay, so you only have to prep for your shift, and once the stuff runs out, there's actually something called a, what is it called right now? I can't remember too well. But there's a actual sheet that you can print out that comes from corporate. And corporate tells you the times you are supposed to prep. Okay, if my shift is over at 2 o'clock and that worksheet says that the next prep time is 4 o'clock, why should I stay and prep for you? She would make us stay and prep for her and not pay us. So she did wage theft on top of everything. And um, she was always getting pregnant, always pregnant. And she would always use it as like some kind of excuse to treat us bad. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. And then they could never fire her because she was always pregnant. And she was a terrible, terrible person at her job. Honest to God, she was a terrible person at her job. And I understand treating pregnant people well, but this was like, this should have been the exception, man. Um, and every time they would list her job on the Indeed or whatever to basically say that she was gonna, like, they were looking to basically replace her, they could not replace her. She would get pregnant again. And so it's so irritating. It is so irritating to deal with that kind of management. And you have to be so careful the kind of management that you go work for, because there is some people who are just like menaces to society in that sense. And she was like that. And I'm not saying that I was necessarily perfect, but at least I knew that I wasn't perfect. She thought she was like perfect. And that's just the way that it is in those kinds of industries. And I remember I'd be in her office and she would be looking through applications, and I'd be like, oh my God, this person looks like they would do really well here. Look, they have management experience, all this stuff. She'd be like, no, no, no. And then what happened was, because she wouldn't staff our shifts, and she would make up all these excuses why she wouldn't staff our shifts, and she would be like, oh, labor budget and everything, but she had her boyfriend on payroll who wouldn't even come in, or would just come in to clock in and then go and leave. So that really wasn't the problem. The labor budget really wasn't the problem, or she'd actually, give that opportunity to somebody who could actually come and work. um, so what happened was that the corporate started to notice all these inconsistencies. And as people would, we had a very high turnover rate. And I don't even know how I stayed there. I think I just stayed there out of necessity, honestly. We had a very high turnover rate because we were so understaffed, and it was just the work was very hard because you had to do a lot. just to run the restaurant. And I was like shocked. Whenever I see two employees working somewhere, I don't go eat there. I'm like, no, I'm not going to add to their suffering today. I don't care how much of a deal they're having. So what happened was that corporate started to send employees from other stores to the location. And she was mad. She hated that because they were sending people that were qualified, like they were management, like they had general management. They were sending general managers from other stores to come and work there. So that felt like a threat to her because she everything threatened her, and she was only like what, like 4 feet tall, and everybody was apparently amazing or whatever. And because everybody was amazing in her mind, she didn't think that they were supposed to work there because they might take her job. And that's the other thing that I want to talk about. um, a lot of these general managers don't even have high school. And that was another shocking thing to me because I found out like what, you only completed up to 8th grade. I could not believe it. I'm like, how are you in a this is when I really understood that thing that Bob Proctor said, where there is some people who are, he calls it an unconscious competent person, is a person who no matter what, even if they don't have the qualifications, they make it to the top. And this person did not have the qualifications, okay? Like they only had like 8th grade. And because I was like, "Oh, you should, like you should really think about becoming accountant." I'm like, "You'd be a great accountant." Um and because we used to have to do the books, and that was one thing that, they were really quick at. And I'm like, but they had been doing the job for like 20 years or whatever. But I was like, "Oh my god, you're so quick at that. Like how are you so quick?" But they're like, "Oh, I've been doing this for a long time." And I'm like, "Oh, you should think about becoming an accountant." And she goes and tells me she didn't even have high school. And I'm thinking to myself, how in the world did this person even make it here? Well, it turns out they just knew the right people. So it's not always about your qualifications, it's sometimes about who you know and how you work the system, because she worked the system beyond belief. She worked that system beyond belief. This little industry that's not supposed to basically make you rich was making her rich. And I remember when she came to work in a Bentley. I'm not kidding you. I am not kidding you. The scam was that deep. And now I guess she thought that the cops were after her, and she started to like not come to work in any car at all, cuz see they start getting paranoid. And then she also told me that they had been on drugs and all this stuff, and I'm like, that is insane. That's insane. Every part of it was insane. And I still think to myself, how in the world do these people get to the top when they are just absolutely terrible? And then I had one counselor that told me they get to the top because they are absolutely terrible, because they're willing to step on whoever just to get to the top. So the more qualified you are, the less they want you there. I'm not kidding. The less they want you there. They have that type of inferiority complex where they are just so scared and threatened that anybody will take their job, that that's all they have apparently. And they're not even good at that, really. They're not even good at functioning in that. And the craziest part was that I went back and applied to that job, and I was key holder for 3 years. The whole time that I was there, as soon as I got hired there, they put me like they basically were like, "We want you to be key holder." So they knew something about me that maybe I didn't know about myself. And basically I was key holder for 3 years, and applied back to the job, and they didn't even want me there. They didn't even hire me. They didn't. like I was shocked. I'm like, oh. And then I went back and I talked to some people, and apparently she thought that I told somebody about her and her boyfriend working there. The person who told about her and her boyfriend working there works there with her, and she gives that man any schedule he wants. He's been her friend for like 20 years. The person who should not backstab you nor betray you betrayed you. So, huh, just saying, darling. But that is the end of this crazy conversation, and I wish you all the best. Have a great day and take care of yourselves.